Hello, and welcome to another vampiric episode of Amiga Retro Adventures. Yes, today will be all about vampires, at least of the electronic variety. I'm going to be installing the Amiga Vampire 500 version 2 Plus in my Amiga 500 Plus motherboard, which is kind of nice because it comes with 2 megabytes, I should say, of chip RAM and various other enhancements. Pretty much the last of the 500 series. So it was probably the more versatile board of all of them, though they're pretty much identical overall. But I've been reading on forums that there might be issues with this board, the Vampire board, on the 500, either because of the power supply or more recently the electrolytic capacitors on these may not be, I wouldn't say supplying enough voltage, but smoothing out the voltage properly, giving the Vampire card a nice stable power supply, because it is running pretty high clock as far as the Amiga is concerned, so power fluctuations are not well tolerated. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to remove all the electrolytic capacitors, all of them, and I will replace them with the newer ones over here. They are electrolytic as well, but considering these are brand new compared to 30 plus years, yeah, it would be a definite improvement. So the first thing I have to do is enumerate all of these capacitors, their values, and how many there are of them, and retrieve them from that case of new parts. And once I get that done, I will have the tally result for all the caps that have to be replaced, and I will be back shortly. Thank you. Hello, I have returned. So there are 17 electrolytic capacitors on this fine motherboard, and the breakdown is as such. There are 3 1000 microfarad 10 volt capacitors, 6 100 microfarad capacitors. There are 2 47 microfarad 16 volt capacitors. There are 4 22 microfarad 16 volt caps. And finally, there are 2 10 microfarad 50 volt capacitors. Obviously, anything 10 volts or higher, most of them will be 16, will be more than enough for this board. So that will be that. So now I will attempt to unsolder these wretched things and replace them with new ones. Wish me luck. Okay, so the first capacitor I'm going to attempt to remove will be this one here by the CPU socket. So this will be our test to see how well the desoldering station works on this. Most of the capacitors will always be to ground, and obviously on the 5 volt rail. It's going to suck because the ground plane usually needs a lot more heat. So we shall see how well this removes itself. I will focus in a bit there to the area of interest. There we go. It's going to be this one right here. Without kicking the tripod, I will attempt to apply some solder and then do the desoldering station. Try not to get too much of the equipment in the way. My bald head, so we shall see. Here we go. Need more heat. That one didn't go very well. Yeah, because that was the ground, of course. The ground's going to require more heat. Feels like you're going to incinerate them sometimes. Should be enough there. Okay, might as well turn this up to the max heat as well, 480 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the wrong direction, one moment. Parts everywhere. Okay, I will do the easy one first, the positive terminal. Sit for a bit. Looks okay-ish. Okay. Now the ground plane, these ones always give you a hard time. because it's plated through right to the other side. Yeah, this isn't even going on actually. There we go. Let it sit for a while. No. So, there are ways around this. See if I'm keeping this in frame or not. Yeah, there it is. There's the capacitor here. Of course, the one side comes out no problem. So this is what you call a bit of cheating. I'm going to heat it up and just pull it through, and hopefully I can get the capacitor out. If the soldering iron lets me. There we go. That was a 100 microfarad. Are we still in frame? Yes, we are. Okay. So I will heat that up. But I don't know how well this is going to remove itself being ground. I could try a solder wick, I guess, but normally I never have luck with solder wicks. Excellent, that worked. There we go. Let me see if I can zoom in for that shot there. I'm doing a horrible job. Excellent. Yeah, there we go. So it has been removed cleanly. So ideally, because of the ground plane draws so much heat, because like I said, you can see the whole ground area here, and it's plated through on the other side, which is also on the ground plane. Yeah, it needs a ridiculous, excuse me, a ridiculous amount of heat. But that seems to work just fine. So I'm going to do that to all the other capacitors, and I'm going to do them one at a time, unsolder, replace one at a time, so I don't get them all messed up. And then when I am done, I will zoom out here. When I am done, I will come back and we'll go from there. So I will be roughly right back, like more like an hour or something, but anyway, I shall return. Hello. Just before I continue with this unsoldering and resoldering components, just wanted to show you the difference between capacitors have changed slightly, even with the electrolytics over the years. The one on the left is the newer one, and the older one, obviously with the slightly bent pins that came off the motherboard, is on the right. Now they're both 100 microfarads, and they're both 16 volts. But look at the size difference between the two. It's a lot smaller. Well, I'd say about 2/3 the size of the older capacitor. So this will vary on the brand, of course, and the quality. I think these ones are just mediocre or average quality, but for, you know, this old electronics will be just fine, and it's better than the old ones, so they should be pretty reliable. Anyways, the case says that they are new and original, high quality, fresh from Japan. I mean, I wish. Fresh from China, so that may or may not be the case, but you get what you pay for, and actually it was a pretty good deal for the assortment I got. So anyway, just wanted to, you know, show you the difference between the two, because at first when I looked at the capacitor, says there's no way that can be the same one, but it is. It's the exact same rating. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you, and I'll get back to the grind here and replace all 17 capacitors. I shall return. Hello, and I have returned. So this took closer to 2 hours to replace these 17 capacitors. The main problem is, even with the solder sucker, the ground plane, in other words, the negative part of the capacitors, which most of these had, because they're filter capacitors for the power supply. Yeah, lots of heat's required. If you don't have the heat, then time. So I pretty much had to, on the negative terminal, use a solder sucker on both sides of the board. So it took a bit of time. Right now I have it configured with the 1 meg of RAM. I put in the 68000 CPU and a ROM chip. The ROM chip will not be required once I install the Vampire card, but and obviously the Vampire card plugs into the CPU socket. But I want to make sure this works first before I install the Vampire. So I have not actually turned this on yet. I do have it hooked up though. Here are the capacitors, all 17 of them. None of them seemed that bad. I think one leaked somewhat. It was a rectifier capacitor, so that might help with stability because it did hook up to the power rails here. Even though it's over on this side of the board, it was still doing the filtering as well. So right now you can see we have, whoops, camera. We don't have much happening on the screen right now using my OSCC, the open source scan converter. Yes, that's how I get the RGB out via HDMI to this Hewlett-Packard monitor. So I'm going to turn this on, and with a bit of luck it will actually power up. I should, because there's no hard drive hooked up, and I do have the floppy, I should relatively quickly get the regular boot screen. So let me turn this on. See what happens. Excellent. No flames. So everything seems to boot very fine indeed. It's kind of weird. It's actually, this camera is making the screen look blue when it's actually more purple. Another reason why to get a capture card of some kind for my videos, but perhaps for Christmas I will purchase that for myself. Okay, so I'm gonna get something to see if it boots, and I have audio, and I will be right back. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is just boot off of a Workbench disk. This way I know the mouse works, the memory shows up, all that fun stuff. So one moment while I attempt to get this in here. Upside down. Floppy noises. So far so good. Yes, those older floppies definitely sound loud. But that is part of the nostalgia. Yes, yes it is. And eventually, we'll have Workbench, I hope. Oh my. Oh. Ah, yes, wrong disk version. This is the 3.1.4. I don't have the Workbench library and icon library. It's not on this disk. Perhaps I will boot off the install disk instead. I shall be right back. Okay, we are back. I will try the install disk. It should work just fine. There we go. Like I said, this is just to make sure the mouse works and all that fun stuff. And after this, I will try a quick game, and then I will throw this back together again. Eventually. Okay, so yeah, I don't have any fast RAM, so obviously 0 other mem, and 2 megs of chip, of course, some for booting, 1.8 some odd. That works just fine. The mouse works. I click on things, stuff opens up. Okay, so next is a game, I guess. I'll be Super Stardust. Actually, no, regular Stardust. It runs on the the AGA machines just fine. So I will attempt that next. So I will turn off the computer, eject the disk, and install the boot disk for Stardust. This is really weird putting it in upside down, but anyway, here we go. I should have hooked up the keyboard, but alas, that has not happened yet. Oh, the suspense. Oh, damn it. I do have the joystick hooked up. I have any audio here? Ah, yes we do. Oh. And both left and right channels are functioning. Get past this. I think it will ask me for the second disc, I believe, before it plays the game. Or not. It has been a while since I have played this. Many moons. And like most games, I suck at them. But oh well. Oh, see, I told you. Disc 2. I like games that constantly spin the drive motor, because one of the things we were always told to do is never eject a disc when the drive is spinning. And it's searching for the replacement. 1 second. That's not it. There we go. See if this works. See my reflection in the monitor. Excellent. My goodness. It's making cheese. Grated cheese, I think. Almost there. Ugh. Ah, success. Yeah, that works. Joystick is functional. So I know all the CIA chips are happy. Now I will die quickly. Run away. So yes, everything seems to be working just fine. I don't know why the colors are blue on this, but I apologize for that. Like I said, capture card, man, capture card. Okay, so that is that. I shall turn this off before it's too late. There we go. Excellent. So everything seems to work just fine. I'm gonna put this back in its case and then hook up the Vampire and see if it boots up. I shall be right back. Hello. So as you can see, I pretty much have the oops, wrong direction. I pretty much have the computer back together again. So what I'm going to do now, if I can move this camera, there we go, is install the Vampire into the CPU socket without destroying anything. So I'll just spray the socket first with some contact cleaner, make sure everything is okay. You see there is no ROM socket, or no ROM in the socket, because apparently, well, I know it doesn't need it since it's on this FPGA along with pretty much everything else. Okay, so I am going to line this up and not misalign any pins too much. There we go. I've had the Vampire in this motherboard before. I just wanted to recap it because it was having instability issues. So that's what this video is covering. So as you can see, it's nicely recapped. Seems to function. So I'm going to now reinstall this onto the CPU socket. And everything seems to be in except for that capacitor, of course. There's a capacitor right under here, which seems to be getting in the way. I don't know if I can bend that down a bit. I'll try that again. Sometimes you can put a riser on here. It's just touching. Not too bad. Let me see if I can bend it a bit more. I don't want to wreck it. Put it right down, I guess. There we go. There's enough lead on there. I hopefully didn't hurt that too much. I bent this one down here for that same reason, because the card, it would get in the way. So hopefully I didn't hurt that too much. I don't think I did. Okay, try this again. There we go. And it's not touching anything. It's actually hitting the socket, which is fine. So I'm going to put this cardboard spacer underneath, like so. If I can get under here. Oh, damn it. 1 second. Trying not to make a mess of things. Okay, there we go. So that should be fine. Nice solid firm pressure on that. I'm going to put this back in. The HDMI, just I'll put it here. And I will put the RAM card back on. Not the RAM card, the compact flash. Particles, there we go. And if I could line this up, oh, there we go, second here. And there it is. It's installed. I have the SD card as well, 16 megabyte in there. It's kind of nice about these. You can't boot off of it, but it gives you extra storage. Okay, so everything looks like it's okay. It's hooked up well. Other than that, let's see what happens. Later on, I'll reconnect this Ethernet module here. I have to figure out what the pinouts again. I have the diagram somewhere. Plugs into, I believe, one of these headers right here. And it'll give you, I can get the 500 online using the internet. It's kind of cool. So let me turn this on and see what happens. Hopefully, something. So let me get the, get this centered up a bit more. Excellent. Does it zoom out a bit more? This is as zoomed out as it gets. It's back a bit more then. Okay, let me turn it on. Should have something by now. Okay, I think I have the wrong input. 1 second here. Should be right. This is not going well. Oh, I know why. Silly me. It would be helpful if I hooked this up, the HDMI cable, to the correct input. Yes, it wasn't actually plugged into anything. There we go. Somewhat. Should be the correct one. If I could get some video. I know it booted. We heard it. Yeah, come on. There we go, number 2. Why isn't there no output? Try it again. There we go. Much better. Slight technical difficulties, but easily fixed. Oh, I know why. Yes, this version is optimized for the other monitor, not this one. So let me correct that, and I will be right back. Hello, I have returned. Pretty much have the Amiga 500, the vampirized Amiga 500 back together again. Or maybe re-vampirized, because it was vampirized before the capacitors were replaced. So the recap, yes. I hooked everything up, the Ethernet module, HDMI, and the VGA. This is the Indivision ECS, actually. It works okay, but unfortunately the config tool does not work with the Vampire. I do not know why, but I'll leave it installed anyways. It doesn't matter too much. So now it should boot up just fine, since, let me lower this a bit. I cloned the image from my Vampire 600, which is pretty much identical. I had to mess around with a few other settings, but it works now. And I will show you. I will turn it on. Success. It is now fully operational. Well, it always was fully operational, but now it's been recapped, and hopefully it will run more stable than previously. It wasn't that bad, but it was enough to cause random crashes and other issues. So hopefully that will be that. So I will throw the cover back on, and that should pretty much be the end of this video. Hello again. So before I wrap up this video, of course this is the Amiga 500 completely assembled. It's not plugged in or anything, but that's fine. But I wanted to show you what I did so I could make all the ports accessible on the back. It's a bit of a hack job, but I have seen worse. So there we go. So you have the VGA port, which is right here, HDMI, and the 10100 megabit Ethernet right there. Yeah, it's a bit carved, but I use my Dremel for that. It's I have extra cases, so I don't mind butchering the odd one, but it's actually not too bad. Everything's kind of glued down in place. It doesn't move around at all. They're pretty sturdy. They don't go anywhere. So that's it. So it's customized, I guess, if you could say. So that's pretty much it for today. Probably around Christmas or shortly after, I will make a video, two of either this 500 or the 600, running some of the, well, basically running the Coffin OS, which is basically a modified version of the operating system with, you know, various tools and apps and games and all that fun stuff, and see how fast everything will be running on this machine. So that's it for today, and as always, thank you for watching.